Let me see if YouTube is going to be accommodating with us and show us.
Something's happening. It's you. It's us.
We are live. We are live. So let's share that out there now to the whole world, to Twitter. I'm being a twit.
Okay.
It looks, it's a delay.
Yes, the YouTube one is going to be like a 5-second delay. Why? I don't know. It's not like I can actually get in there and edit out anything, nor that I would. All right, it looks like it has been tweeted out at least on one account.
3, 2, 1, go.
We are definitely live. We're just waiting for some people to find it now.
3, 2, 1.
Oh, top chat 3. There's 3 people. I wonder if YouTube is looking at the screen and saying that's you and me and you.
Too many people.
Too many people.
What? They base it on how many people are there?
Yeah, they can tell how many people are logged in. And right now we've got Adam Post saying hi, Jim. So hi, Adam. Thanks for coming in.
Adam, all right.
Hi, Jim, and hi, Holly. We're glad to see you here, Adam. Who else we got in the chat?
Hi, Adam. I saw it.
Oh,
well, I mean, yeah.
So that would be a little
Adam
bit of a delay.
I guess so.
Too many screens.
Yeah.
So for everybody, we got 5 people in here now. Good. The crowd's coming. 5's a crowd. That's my life, guys. This is the Critical Blast live stream with Jim Balent and Holly Golightly. We are glad to have you guys with us today.
Well, thank you.
You have a momentous event coming up next month. It's not many people who celebrate 19 years, but... And you know what? It's 19 years ago, I was writing for a website called thecomicstore.com and doing interviews with... what's that?
I remember that website.
Yeah, I'll never forget it for other reasons. But I was interviewing you, Jim, with a cassette player and a microphone suction cup that went to the back of the spiral bound. Oh yeah, the dinosaurs were real loud outside and it was hard to hear. And the whole thing went for like 30 minutes and didn't record. And I had to call you back and take real quick notes on everything again.
Oh,
so
wow.
I don't have that problem now.
Now we just drop signal.
Now we just drop signal. Yes, we have higher level of technical incompetencies to overcome. But I was thinking that I was like, God, it was 19 years ago and I was still doing this. And Broadsword was just stepping out. So first of all, one of the things I want to tell the viewers who are here, we set up last week to make sure that we had all the technical stuff out of the way. And you guys are such a positive energy couple. I could tell that right away. And I'm getting that again today. What's it like working together as a couple in comic books? And I'm assuming you're a couple because you guys work together. I have not researched anything.
Yes, it's part of our contract. We have to be a couple. No, it's, when we met each other, we had both the same work ethic. And we just, we gelled in that method first, where we both loved to draw. We were working with different companies at the time. And then, as you say, 19 years ago, when the time came to start the company, we're both sort of workaholics and we do everything ourselves. So we decided, instead of going to another company to sort of publish Tarot or any of the other titles, School Bites, we said, well, why don't we do it ourselves? Because we know it's going to be us who's going to stay up till 3 o'clock in the morning to get things right. Or it'll be us that wants to take a week off to go to Florida. Or it comes down to us. So it's like, well, let's make the money to keep our lights on instead of another company's lights on. And, Holly and I, we both agreed that if we made 3 cents, then we know it was all us. If we made $3 million, then we know it was all us. We both spent times in bigger companies in which we loved working in that format, but there was always a childhood dream that I had, and I'm sure Holly did too, that we wanted to start something on our own and our own characters. So I think it was, that sort of combination that sort of, brought us together and has kept us together.
You're kind of the pioneer in that aspect as well. I mean, independent comics have always been around as long as there's been a comic industry, but usually the independent stuff was I really want to break into the big two someday, and I'm going to start showing my stuff. And you kind of reversed that and said, yeah, I'm a known name in the big two. I'm doing, a big series at DC. I've got covers on Catwoman. Holly, you were doing stuff at Archie and Disney. I want to say Disney, right?
No,
Disney. You were doing.
I did one story for the Disney Digest like years and years ago. That was it. But I was mainly working at Archie.
Okay, but still, big name companies. One would assume reasonably large paychecks as far as comic book people go, and decided that we're going to get out of that and go indie ourselves. Was there more to that than just, hey, we want to make all the money for ourselves if we off our labors, or?
Yeah. I don't want to say the main reason to do this is for money. Yeah, the money is there and it's great. The main reason we do it is because we like doing it. And I did come from a independent background. Before DC Comics, I was working for the smaller companies in, I think, California, like Malibu Comics. And then from there I worked my way up into DC, and then from DC, started Broadsword. So yeah, the main reason we do this is because we love to draw and to create. And they always say, do what you love and the money will follow. And so far, it has, because of our readership. And then, those are the guys that have made us stay here for 19 years. Not only because we love doing what we do, but because our readers enjoy our work as well.
Now, you also, when you stepped out to do this, you were really on your own. I mean, it's like, here's our resources and we're going to publish. Today, you see so many creators all the time now stepping out and saying, well, I'm going to do my own independent thing, but I have the advantage of crowdfunding with Kickstarter and Indiegogo. How did you guys get finance for that? I mean, did you just save up on your own and do it, or did you have some backers that would come in and assist with that?
Are you talking about 19 years ago?
Yeah, you're talking about, the year 2000.
Yeah.
In the year 2000, no, we took no money. We never did. We don't do it today. It's just something we love. And one of the reasons we're still here today is because when we put out a book or a product or a statue, what we do is we make sure that we can finance it on our own. So that's why all our bills are paid at the end of every month. We have no debt, and that's just the way we. Looks like somebody is interrupting you.
I'm having side conversations here. I left the pool area because people were going to swim, and now they're going to vacuum.
Well, vacuum's important.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. I don't want anyone to lose their job. Okay, you should be doing that for 5 minutes. But
we could talk louder.
Yeah.
we can talk louder. And if I had a way to mute my microphone while you did that, and I can do that probably. I can mute myself. Yes, I can mute myself. So when you guys talk, I will mute myself. And that way we won't have the vacuum cleaner taking over the sound and driving the mic. Yeah, this is professional podcasting, people. This is things you need to know.
Maybe if it's raining outside, there must be a tree you could stand under.
Watch you get hit by lightning.
That would be my luck, most assuredly.
You do make umbrellas.
So let's talk about going into Broadsword, because you had, obviously Taro is your flagship character, but when Broadsword came out, you also had at least one other book that I remember, because I was reading Three Little Kittens. And I don't know if that's still being published, because I'm not seeing any solicitations for it. I'm only seeing solicitations for Taro. Is that really the focus right now, is we're going to do this one book and we're going to do it well, and maybe someday get back into adding other things?
Well,
I'm going to do it now.
Yeah, yes and no. The question is, yeah, it is. The Tarot Witch of the Black Rose is our bi-monthly book that has been on time for the past 19 years, and we're really proud of that because we know of no other company that's doing that. Well, we know that the big two can't really say that. They have many deadlines, and sometimes they have to move theirs. But because it's just Holly and I, we sort of make it get done. You speak of the Three Little Kittens. Yes, at one point, I think it was in year 2 or 3 maybe, we decided to put out a second title. And it was a little bit too much on us to do a monthly book. And that was another thing. One of the other rules that we had when we brought Broadsword together was, one, we wanted to be the company that was run by the artists. We didn't want to be the publishers hiring other artists. We wanted to be the artists who published their own work. So that's why you really never see us hiring out other artists or writers to put out tarot while we do another title. When I started Broadsword, I said I have 3 ideas I wanted to do. And tarot was one of those 3. And I kept with it. I also think that we do this because we have a loyalty to our readers who have followed us for the past 19 years. So we're not one of these companies that we're going to relaunch every 2 or 3 months with a new #1. I grew up in the age where you bought, say, Spider-Man 100, then that's where you entered Spider-Man 100. I didn't walk around going, well, I'm not going to pick up Spider-Man 100 because I didn't read Spider-Man 1 or 15. I'm from the age where you picked up a book because you loved the character and you continue. So that's why we're on issue 114. Pretty soon it'll be 115 next month. So I also knew I didn't want to flood the market with too many Broadsword titles, because I've seen in the past other companies try to do that and they failed in that year. Once again, they have a stable of artists and writers to draw from. I didn't want that. It's just Holly and myself. And when Holly wanted to launch School Bites, we did that. When I wanted to do a side project, which was the Three Little Kittens, we did that. But mainly it is Tarot Witch of the Black Rose that is our flagship.
I couldn't read that question. There was a question.
Yes, I've got you covered here. This is from Death, Taxes, and Bad Comics. It says, Jim, I love your Catwoman series, but do you feel like you would be allowed to draw Catwoman that way if you worked for the larger companies with the politics of today? And, that addresses something that everybody knows about Jim Balent, is he's got a certain style that he likes to draw with. And it's, it does seem to be something that people are discussing today is, when people say they don't like the mainstream comics, or people say, hey, this has changed or that's changed, the comment comes back and says, oh, you're missing your boobs.
Is that the question?
They're right here.
Yeah, that is the question. He wonders if you would be able to draw Catwoman the way you drew her then, with the way the politics are within the industry today, I guess.
Well, there was politics even back in 1993 when I started. Maybe there was more freedom. I don't know. I'm not with DC now. I have worked with them recently doing variant covers, which is always wonderful. But I know that the companies have grown. They've moved. I used to go to New York City. Now they're in California. So, the office politics, they have their own rules and what they have to follow. And sometimes, it gets passed down to the artist and the writer. To tell you the truth, I don't know if they would tell me to draw differently. I think, in a strange way, it's kind of an insult to say, draw a woman this way or not this way, because, you're insulting a bunch of people who may look that way, either through science or through nature. So to me, I always pictured Catwoman in all of my girls that or women that I draw, they're very sexy and they're very dangerous because that's how I view these strong female characters. So, to tell you the truth, I don't know until that day comes. There could be a model sheet that gets handed down. I know when I worked on Catwoman in the past, if we had to say draw, Azrael, we would get a model sheet of what the armor looks like. So you'd have to sort of stick to that. So it all depends on your editors on how free they want to allow the writers or the artists or the creative team to do their style. Kelly Jones is an awesome artist, and he was allowed to draw Batman in his style, which is wonderful. He has those 3-foot long ears on Batman, and Graham Nolan has his style, and I had my style of Batman and Catwoman. So I would hope that there's a lot of freedom now. Like I said, when I was working on the Batman Catwoman wedding cover, I was given model sheets of like how the Catwoman dress looks, and obviously it has to be the short hair. It can't be the purple Catwoman that I designed. So working for a company, there's always a give and take, and hopefully as an artist and as a writer, working with these companies and editors, you find a peaceful ground where everybody is happy.
Okay, I'm unmuting to ask the next question. And yes, there's noise in the background now. So I hope, can you hear me? Yes, not yes or no. Okay, great. Let's talk a little bit about tarot and exactly what that world is for people who are tuning in who have not read a tarot book. Specifically, and Holly, maybe you can even address this because I know you post a lot of mysticism pictures. I don't know if I'm using the right word. I don't want to say magic with a K or witchery or whatever it is. But specifically, what do you bring to the tarot world as far as a background and a knowledge base goes? And I will unmute.
I just color the book and I do the lettering, basically. It's Jim's book.
Yeah, I draw it, I created it, I write it. Holly does an incredible job in coloring it, doing the production, the lettering. The book is based on a lot of events that I've experienced or my friends have experienced or Holly has experienced. But yeah, to us, Tarot's a real person. So Holly and I would sit around and sometimes talk about how Tarot would feel. But it definitely starts with me. I know a lot of people think, I only draw the book and then Holly writes it because, the character has like red hair.
Yeah, if I wrote it, everyone would be having cupcakes and hot chocolate and no one would get hurt. Just so you know, that's a clue.
But Tarot, Witch of the Black Rose, for those who haven't picked up the book, it's sort of a modern day sword and sorcery book, if you want to boil it down to that. It's about a female witch who is charged with keeping the balance between man and magic from the goddess herself. And she has a sister who sort of follows a darker path. So I don't want to say white or dark magic because to me they're almost the same depending on how you use it. This pen is not evil or good. It depends on how I use it. So that's how I
stab someone in the eye.
Yeah, that's how I view magic. So, but Raven Hex does follow a more darker path than Tarot. And then we have also the Graveyard Guardian, which is the skeleton man named John Webb. He works in a cemetery, which I used to work in a cemetery. That's how I worked my way through art school. So as you see, all these characters relate to people we know or people we've met on the road. And we have drawn and colored people into the storyline of some of our readers. So that's another sort of perk when it comes to owning your own business, that if you have like a really great friend or a fun reader who would love to see him or her in the book, we usually draw that in, and it's just something else that's really cool.
And if you want to know what I also put in there as a colorist and as a witch, I sometimes use a little color magic in there. So certain choices that I make are on purpose, certain textures. I do try to bring in the energy of nature. I do really, really enjoy coloring, you know, the fairy realm and the more organic stuff. Even though I grew up in Manhattan, I just love doing all of the you know, the witchy nature. You know, I love monsters too. Even though I can't draw a really scary one, I love coloring them. And very proud of blood splatter in our horror topic issues at times. It's a lot of fun. So
Yeah, and there's a lot of stories that deal with magic. It also deals with morals. So I always thought this book will entertain and educate at the same time. So people who are into magic and the craft will see things very familiar in the book.
Mm-hmm.
Those who are not, they will enjoy just a great adventure.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay, that's an interesting phrase that you used there a second ago, Holly. Color magic. Can you go into a little bit of what that means?
Well, in the craft, there are a lot of different ways of creating magic, and there's not one way, but there is a way that I learned. I'm basically a solitary practitioner. I started very early in life. I was drawn to it through just probably started in movies or story books and whatnot. And then at the age of 8, I discovered my first tarot deck and started reading. Along the way, I started learning other forms of creating magic, and one of them being color. And I'm a Virgo, so I like to look at it scientifically. Is a little like, you know, Vulcan-y about being a Virgo, and mathematically. So there's also emotional connections to colors, and so wrapping that up with magic, choosing certain colors to evoke an emotion. Because really magic is just another word for, you know, action, using your imagination, using your energy to evoke a response or a state of being. So in the path that I follow, what I learned are certain colors equals certain energies. And let's say you want something very dynamic, you make sure there's like reds, or you want to cool something off, blues. And sometimes Jim will say, well, this character is doing this. And I'll think, ooh, she should wear green because that's a good color for healing or love or something like that. She's doing high magic, purple, you know. So I think about those things when I choose colors.
I think it was Neil Gaiman who wrote in one of his books that science is a way of describing the universe in words we can understand, and magic is a way of speaking to the universe in words that it cannot ignore. So there's a very, very interesting parallel in storytelling with science and magic. For instance, we talked a little bit about tarot and Raven Hex, and Raven Hex follows a darker path, if not, you know, not saying black magic. And, you know, addressing the lady in the Star Wars shirt, we have the Force, which has the dark side and the light side. You know, it's like duct tape. It holds the universe together, and it has the dark side and the light side.
Right. Yin yang.
Exactly. So I don't know where I was going with that, except that it seems like
cool.
It just depends on how you want to describe what you're talking about, whether you want to be writing a science fiction story or a magic story. You're really talking about the same elements all the time, just in a different way of defining them.
Well, I mean, I'm both into science fiction and fantasy quite equally. And I know they're going to start making the Artemis movies. Have you heard about those books? Artemis Fowl, where they marry fantasy and science. And there's a fairy named Holly, so I'm very excited. And I just love that. And, you know, in the history of man, there's like so much we considered magic that is now science now, you know? And so, and I'm a big Douglas Adams fan. So I really don't, you know, think about Slaughty Bart Fast, where you could really knock yourself out thinking about the answers to life, the universe, and everything, but it doesn't make you any happier. So, you know, I'd rather light a nice candle.
Absolutely. I'm going to take a moment here to shill for everybody listening who can tell if there's noises going on in the background. Critical Blast is currently operating out of a hotel, and we need to get out of this hotel. So we have several different options where people might be able to help us do that and get back into an established place. One is we have our anthology Gods and Services, which is available now on Amazon. This is a science fiction fantasy, more fantasy actually, no science fiction in this one, anthology of the old curiosity shop that appears where no shop was and disappears when you try to go back to it, where old, disused, and out of service gods sell their services. And you buy something and you find a god attached to you after that, and he is or she is bound to help make your life better, whether you want it that way or not. So we have some great writers in there. We have David J. Peterson from the Angst series. We have Ira Bloom, who did Hearts and Other Body Parts for Scholastic. And we have John Della Rose, who's a science fiction writer in his own right. Plus, we have a bunch of new voices from around the world. So it's a very good mix. We're really proud of the series. You can get it on paperback or in Kindle, and we're happy if you buy either one of those. If you're not a reader, we have our TeePublic store, which is also linked in our description. And of course, since we're falling short on our goal to get out of here by the end of March, which is not so much a goal as it is a deadline, where we have to be somewhere, whether we have a place to be or not. We have a GoFundMe that has now been started. We would appreciate anybody who could help out with there. If you don't want to buy the cheap book or the cheap t-shirt, go to the GoFundMe and be even cheaper. We're happy either way. Getting back to our guests, Jim Balent and Holly Golightly with Broadsword Comics, talking about Tarot, Witch of the Black Rose. I had down here notes on Raven Hex because she's going through an arc right now in her life that is personality changing and tragic at the same time. Now, I'd not figured out yet, because I was reading like a long time ago when we saw Raven Hex, and then there was this big gap in the middle where I was like, children and comics books are things that I have to make a priority which one I'm going to pay for first. Back into the comic book world, and I'm seeing Raven Hex is working with Tarot. So is she a good girl, a bad girl, a good bad girl? What's going on with Raven Hex in her life these days?
Well, all the characters aren't as black and white as good and evil. I think that's what makes any good character interesting. Even in ourselves, we're not all good, we're not all evil. Otherwise, we'd be pretty boring. So yes, Raven Hex is going through some things that many people today are going through, without giving away any parts of the stories. But she is sort of dealing with this situation the only way she knows how. Her heart has been closed off for a long time. It started with the death of her father back when she was a teenager. So that hardened her towards mankind or to let anyone into her heart. Where Tarot, on the other hand, she took the tragedy of losing her father the same way, but she wants to bring a balance and unite people together. But this particular storyline of the Dragon Prince, who basically is asking Raven to marry him and to give her this wonderful life. And this storyline is about what happens when a love comes into your life and you have this sort of defensive wall up. Sure, defensive walls can protect you, but it also prevents you from loving and from seeing something right in front of you. So this is sort of a moral tale that I always sort of wrap up into all my stories and then throw a fantasy twist onto it. That Raven Hex is going through, and it actually sort of comes to a head in this issue of 114. So once again, without sort of spoiling anything, Raven Hex has evolved since, say, issue 1 or 2 of Tarot, Witch of the Black Rose. Early on, I was told that my series wouldn't last past issue 3. So that's a really scary thing to hear when you're jumping into the ocean of self-publishing, and then you have the so-called people in the know saying, "Oh, Jim, it's not going to last." So you're biting your fingernails, and here we are, 19 years later, never missed an issue. It's still going strong thanks to our readers, and that's when I knew I had to sort of branch out and make these characters more rounded as opposed to just like a 4-issue mini arc. So these are really how the characters were developed, were created in my mind. Same thing with Boo Cat, John Webb, all of the other supporting characters. So yeah, there is similarities to what's happening to Raven, as similar to what people are going through nowadays.
Now, one of the things I can imagine it has to be really scary trying to have a long-lasting book, especially when it is a mature reader's book, because you've narrowed down your market so much at that. Although you did narrow it down to people with the money, so that's good. But what I'm seeing in the storytelling that is so different from everything else that's on the market today is that you have long-running arcs told in single story issues. And what I mean by that is I pick up the Halloween issue and there is a single story, beginning, end, this battle, even though there's stuff going on underneath of it that's always continuing. I pick up the Christmas issue and it's start of a story, end of a story. And that's something that I think comic books in general has lost its way on, because in the 70s and 80s, when I was a kid reading comic books, I didn't have to say, sometimes I had to get the next issue, but I didn't have to have a whole year's worth to tell what the hell was going on in this story.
Right. Yeah, that's exactly how I want to tell these stories and produce it. I also want to go back to what you said about cutting our audience by making it a mature reader's label. When I came up with tarot, I knew that I wanted nudity in the book. I knew I wanted more of a mature storyline. Not so much as the blood and gore. That's not me. It's cool for other books, but I knew with tarot I wanted to be very sensual, and I also wanted nudity or skyclad. So I didn't sit down and say, well, I'll make X amount of dollars if I put clothes on her, or I'll lose X amount of dollars if she's nude or topless. I wanted this to be a creation. As I told Holly, I said, if we lose like millions of dollars, then we lost millions of dollars, but we put out something that we like. And it's I didn't want to water down the book, and we both agreed on that too. But going back to your story arc question, yeah, some stories are maybe, I don't think it's ever a year long, maybe 6 months or 4 or 5 issues at best. But then sometimes I just love picking up an issue and it's one story, whether it's the Krampus story or the Halloween story. And yeah, it leads into maybe the next issue. But I also wanted that reader who comes to your table or to your booth and say, hey, I have never picked up Tarot Witch of the Black Rose. Comic books are $3 now. Don't tell me to buy 12 issues for a story. I want one issue, and we have several issues that we go, oh, here, pick up the Krampus, pick up the Halloween issue, or pick up the Haunted Hairball issue, because they're not all heavy. A lot of them are just fun reads. A lot of them are I even changed the art form where it's more Disney-looking style, more cartoony as opposed to realistic. So that makes it fresh for me drawing it and writing it, and fresh for the reader. But it's nothing that I sit around and plan, because that makes it sound so sterile. It's something that comes from my heart, comes from Holly's heart when we put out a book. So we do what we like. The audience usually finds us, because I always said, if you hated drawing something, like if you were hired to draw like oranges or fruit, and you made a living doing that, but you hated it, I mean, to me that's a waste of a life. Draw what you like, build your audience. Hopefully your audience will love that, and continue on, because why draw something you hate? Because you'll find an audience that loves the way you draw fruit or oranges, and then you're like kind of stuck drawing oranges for the rest of your life.
And you do still do commissioned artwork, I believe. I've seen pieces where you can buy them on the web. Both you and Holly are doing them. Can you tell people where they can find that artwork and peruse what you're putting out there?
Well, why don't you talk about the spiderweb art?
Sure. Because of so much work that I have to do to have tarot produced bi-monthly, and also I take care of our website and our store, and I built a lot of that, and I do the shipping and stuff. It was difficult for me to do my own title as well. So I got very lucky, and I was invited to be a artist at the Spiderweb Gallery, which is owned by Jean and Greg Hildenbrandt.
Know those names?
Yes. And what's crazy is that I grew up where I wasn't allowed to put posters on my wall because my mom was like really, really like into decorating, and my room was like pristine, white couch and all this like fancy stuff. And I just wanted to put a Star Wars poster up so bad. And she said, okay, you could put it up, but it had to be in my bathroom on the back of the door so no one could see it, but I could when I was in the bathroom. So that was the first poster I was allowed to put up, was my Greg Hildenbrandt poster. And now like I'm in their gallery. So I do sometimes weep in a corner because I can't believe it. But I'm doing paintings for them. I've done a series of Disney princess paintings, Disney couples. I did some portraits. I did commissions through them all the time. Pretty much pop culture, Star Wars. I have different styles. I can do everything from chibi all the way to realistic. I started a new fairy, not fairy portraits, but like a collection of different fairies. Some of them will look like me. I'm working on. I've done Jareth from Labyrinth. Gosh, it's all up there in their gallery on Spiderweb Art Gallery. And I have links on my Facebook all the time, Holly Witch. And I also have the website schoolbites.net. Schoolbites was, well, it still is my manga. So that's there. And when Jim does commissions, it's usually when we're running a Kickstarter. We do Kickstarters for unique items. Like we just created an Oracle deck, which is actually a mate to a divination deck that we had done 2 years ago. And by request, everyone wanted more cards, so we rolled that out. And it's more of an event, We're doing these projects that are a little bit different from the comic, but it's what people want. So that's when the door opens for Jim to do 5 commissions, and they're gorgeous. And what else are you doing?
Well, sometimes at night, if I have some time left over, I like to sort of sketch either Catwoman or another figure, but mostly it's Catwoman, either with a tiger or a lion. And currently I just finished a drawing of Catwoman with a snow leopard. And how that all started was basically on an airplane where, flying 5 hours to San Diego Comic-Con, I'm sort of a guy that needs to do something. So I bring a large sketch pad and start drawing sketches, quick sketches, not quick sketches, but sketches that last like 5 hours or 3 hours. And then, offer them at the booth. And I would get lots of letters saying, well, we can't make it to San Diego or any con you're appearing at. Because we really don't appear at many cons, mainly because of our publishing schedule, and we don't hire people to do our job. So we have to say no to places in Europe or places in the United States or Mexico and Canada. So we would get letters saying, where can I purchase these drawings? So what I've been doing lately is when I had some time after dinner, I would sketch these Catwoman drawings or other drawings. And then once I'm finished, I give them to Holly, and then she finds a forever home for them.
And you do like live
Yeah,
sketching.
Like last night I went live, and I just sort of, I like just talking to the people, just like what we're doing now, of, you know, just this is how I do the sketch, you know, with these 3 pencils. But we really talk about sketches. We either talk about, you know, whatever the viewer is wanting to talk about that day. But I just think it's cool to sort of connect with the readers, because that's the main reason we go out on the road, is to meet the readers, because they have incredible stories. I'm always amazed on who's picking up our book. We just came back from Edinburgh, Scotland. Our book was there. Tara Witch of the Black Rose was there. And it was great to meet readers there. And it just blows me away that something that I could draw in my studio in Pennsylvania ends up in Scotland, and somebody knows the stories. So that's basically almost our life, really.
That's very cool. Now, getting to a couple of the comments here coming in on the chat line, and I remember you did tweet last night that you were doing the live streaming, and I replied back to the tweet, "Where's the link?" Because the tweet went out without a link for anybody to follow. So somebody here is asking, do Jim and Holly have a YouTube channel where we can watch these drawings happen live?
The drawings happen on our Facebooks. So it's Jim Balent Facebook, and my Facebook is Holly Witch. We do have a YouTube channel. It's under my Cherry Creeper name. And I remember the first, I was making videos for our comics. I think the first one was issue 54, because I love playing with technology. I love making videos and stuff. It's making like little music videos, and they're all up on our YouTube. And they're fun to watch, because if you're wondering about issues gone by, you could, you know, put on an old, like I grew up an MTV teenager, you know, put on an old.
Back when they played music.
That's right. So check them out. They're a lot of fun. But we do our live on Facebook mainly. And I don't know if it's being copied onto YouTube. I don't think so. I'm thinking.
Yeah, and it's really, to me, it's nothing to save. It's just sort of in the moment. The sketches that I do, the talking with the people, because it's not a how-to. It's just more of like, hey, this is what I'm doing. Because a lot of people ask me, Jim, what are you doing today? And it's like, most of the time the answer is drawing. You know, I do draw 10 to 12 hours a day, and then you go to sleep and start the next cycle. So it's sort of like a little peek into what I'm doing. So I don't think it's worth saving, but it's worth connecting. And you mentioned a link. Usually in the header, I would say going live at 5:30, and then at 5:30 will come up, and I'll say drawing or sketching Catwoman with the leopard. If you want to give this a forever home, here's the link. And then people will write to that link saying, you know, how can I make this happen?
Yeah, you just look in the videos if you want to see on Facebook. I saw one of the questions about crowdfunding. Oh, okay. I saw one of the questions on crowdfunding, and asking how that influences our publishing schedule. And I could just quickly say, sure, not at all, because that's not how we run our company. Our company is not crowdfunded. We will think of a unique project, like a card set or a game or just something unusual.
Yeah.
And then we'll make an event, and people can like gather and crowd and they all share in like the special stuff that'll happen, because the more people who join, the packages do grow, you know, and a little extra shows up in there. We can make a little more here, or we could expand that idea a little better to doing this or doing that. So if anything, we try to work that into our production schedule, because the production schedule goes forth no matter what, you know?
Yeah, and when Holly says no matter what, for 19 years it was no matter what. we've hit our deadlines, you know, in spite of incredible odds. We both had deaths in our family. We've had power outages due to a hurricane coming through and knocking out our town for 7 to 8 days, where we literally took all of our equipment every day and set up in a hotel room, did our coloring, did our drawing, did all the production, and then every night tear down the studio, bring it back to our home, and sleep here, and then the next day
right back,
do it again, because you know we know the sacrifices, we know the loyalty of the readers who expect us to have an issue every 2 months, and we've done so. So
we even scheduled surgery around it.
We've scheduled surgeries around it. So yeah, we do that. And with going back to the Kickstarters, the way I always viewed the Kickstarter was like, say you have your favorite band and they're putting out their new album, and like, yeah, you could buy the new album in the local stores if that's what you want. That's cool. But if you're like this like really uber like fan of this band, and you understand that, oh well, if I join the Kickstarter, I'll get like extras, like maybe an autographed CD or a poster or a pic. And that's how I viewed all of our Kickstarters. It's like, yeah, you know, people who just, you know, want the book, like for example, issue 100, it was in all the stores, but we also did a specialty issue where there was more pages, more content,
perfect bound,
and then, you know, all the goodies that come with Kickstarters. So it's like those people who are like really into the book and they want those extras, or they want the t-shirt that they can only find on a Kickstarter, we give that option to them as well.
Yeah, and we do a lot of exclusives on our website, jimbalent.com. We'll do, there it is, jimbalent.com. We'll do Skyclad editions, which are not in the stores. We'll do the Rainbow Chrome editions, metal editions. We'll do very small printings of reissues that have sold out on pristine paper stock. You know, because that's like our couture line in our boutique. I come from a fashion background. I started my first business when I was 21. So I take a lot of pride of that. Our work is more couture, or at least that's the way I see it from my fashion brain, you know, that we're taking all that time to hand sew the hem or add on all those, not that they're hems on the, don't take me literally, people. But you know what I mean, that we're putting in all of our energy into this project and all the projects we do. So when we do a Kickstarter, it is very connected to our audience and our readers. Not that we're disconnected with our bi-monthly floppy, but it's just like the Kickstarters sometimes are like the more blinged out project. So it's fun.
Since you are so focused on doing your own thing and getting your own product out there, do you have time to even know about other things going on in the comic industry, or enough time to actually even care about them? Because we're at a time in comic books, I guess, where there's a lot of divisions going on right now and a lot of infighting and outfighting. And do you guys look at that and say, oh gosh, I have an opinion on that? Or, you know what, fuck it, I'm doing Broadsword right now and I don't care what they do?
Yeah, I don't think that phases us, because it's we know what the politics are like in the larger companies, and that's the world they've created and they have to deal with. We have our own thing we have to do. That doesn't mean that when an opportunity comes up and they want us to do a variant cover, whether I do it for a KISS comic book or I do for DC comic books, the wedding Batman cover, or even for Germany, you know, then I sort of dip my toe back into the mainstream. But for the most part, there's a lot of drama from what we read, so I don't know what is true and what's not true. Do you have an opinion on that?
I do, it's very it might be very fangirl, because I read comics in the 70s and a bit earlier too, but I think, you know, when you're a teenager or tweenager, that's when you kind of get imprinted.
Sure.
So my heroes, my comics were then, you know, Conan and Red Sonja, Howard the Duck, Tomb of Dracula, Vampirella, all those eerie comics. Those were my comics. So when I see people going boo, 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 over what's going on, I'm like, you know, it just doesn't, it's just like white noise. We're so busy creating and making beautiful things, making interesting things, making, you know, spooky things or fun things. I think that's more important, you know, than making a big hoopla. You know, I would rather inspire someone than piss them off, you know, or give them an oasis of happiness or fantasy. I love doing that. I have my opinion of someone, if someone's being a turd blossom, that's not cool. You know, it's just, there's, I don't know. I'm not, I don't like that kind of stuff. I don't like to engage in it or give fuel to it. And I feel that all of the comics, all the input that I had as a teenager, it's still alive in me. So, you know, it's very rare that I'll find something new that inspires me. I find more inspiration in movies and animation and other things. So.
All right. Looking at some of the chat here, we have a couple of people looking forward to seeing you at conventions, but not knowing if you're ever going to go there. Paul Glover has asked if you're ever going to do any Comic Cons near South Carolina. And Death, Taxes, and Bad Comics is out in Kansas City. Would love to see you out there at Planet Comic Con. You've already mentioned how you can't get to a lot of conventions because of your schedule, but do you have a convention schedule?
Right now, we have an early version of the schedule. For example, I think we have 4 stops right now. The first one is going to be actually next month at a comic book store called Halls of Comics up in Massachusetts. We'll be there
Southborough?
Southborough, I think, is the
town.
The town or the place.
Now, is that near Salem?
Excuse me?
Is that near Salem, Massachusetts?
An hour and a half?
Yeah, I would say it's close to Salem as opposed to if you lived in Florida. Yeah.
Well, I'm just thinking, you know, that it's so apropos.
Yeah, well, we've done Salem signings before, which
Sure.
have always been fun. Right now, we're actually, like I said, it'll be March 24th. We'll be appearing there for about 3 hours. We'll be putting up, you know, follow us on Facebook because that's usually where we make our announcements of our appearances.
And our website has an appearance.
That's right.
At the bottom, it says appearances. Just click on that.
The JimBalent.com site. So that's our first event. The second one will be, I think, in May, which is MegaCon in Florida. And that will be there for, I guess, the weekend of MegaCon. So
16th, 17th, 18th, 19th.
Right, so we'll be there for the whole time. Then the third appearance will be
June.
June?
There's one in June.
What June?
Is the Garden State.
Yep. June is the Garden State.
June 30th.
June 30th. Where, you know, we'll also be sort of probably next to
Spiderweb.
the Spiderweb Art Gallery. So you'll get to meet Greg Brandt and Holly Golightly. So that's cool. I'll be there too, but those two are the big draws. And then, so that's in June. And then July is, of course, San Diego Comic-Con. We've been doing that for over 20 years.
Booth 1715.
1715. And then our overseas Europe show is in Vienna, Austria. And that's in November. So that's right now, the confirmed dates. There might be others that pop up. But right now, I guess there's the 5 appearances.
Now, when you do these conventions, do you, when you're not sitting at a table meeting and greeting fans because you are responsible for your own output. Are you working in your hotel rooms there at night? Or are you working at your table saying, I got to get this page done? Everybody can watch, but I'm working.
No. If we're working in our hotel room, it's usually for whatever's going to happen tomorrow. Whether I want to do a sketch, if I can't sleep, and I'll do that. We don't go out and party, so usually we put in the full 8 hours or 10 hours at the con. A lot of times we skip the meals. We have a one meal a day, which is at night. It could be around 9 o'clock when we finally get our dinner, and then it's usually to the hotel room where we meet up with friends, which is funny because we have our closest friends on the road, it seems, because that's the only time we sort of connect with people. Here we're sort of, even our neighbors rarely see us here, and we've lived here for over 20 years. But yeah, no, we build in, like Holly said, we build in time knowing we're going to be away for this week, so we go work double shift.
Yeah, we work on the weekends.
Yeah, to get things done. Yeah, like today we're working, and we made sure that we scheduled in Critical Blast.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that, and we're not going to keep you much longer. We're going to diverge a little bit here just to talk about some off-the-wall topics. One of them we talked about before we started, which was gaming, and I got to thinking that I have seen comic creators out there right now who are not only doing their comic books, but they are, because apparently it's so much easier to do now, getting into making their characters into games, either for app games or other kinds of games. What would you think about doing, if not gaming artwork, actually having a tarot kind of game? What would you envision that as being? Would you be interested in doing it?
Well, over the years, Holly's characters and mine have been approached to do games, and we started working with companies, and for some reason, either the company fizzled out, or sometimes we get these incredible offers. Like one of my favorite offer was in San Diego Con. A gentleman came by. He said he owned his own his own video game creation company. He said the same thing you did. He thinks Tarot Witch of the Black Rose would be an excellent game. And of course I said, yeah, of course it would be. I have several ideas. And then he would hit me with, so Jim, if you give me $1 million, I will develop you a 3-minute sizzle reel. And so it's always wonderful to hear.
That's the opposite of the way this whole thing is supposed to work.
Well, a lot of people try that too.
Oh yeah, well that's something else that people should be aware of, is being creator owned. You'll get movie deals, you'll get gaming deals, and the best thing to do is you have a lawyer, but also to sort of remember what you're giving away for whatever X amount of dollars, because nowadays it's sort of the publishing rights, it's the ownership of the characters. Now, if that's your battle plan, if your battle plan is to create, one character, 4 books, and done, and just sell it for a movie or for a game, good. Go in peace. That's not me. That's not Holly. Holly's has creations that she has been in development with in Hollywood for many years, and it would go to script writing and then collapse. So as we know, even the Marvel characters, Spider-Man, and they've been in development for years, before it would hit, the big screen. So, my sort of caution note to everyone is, be aware of what you give up.
Yeah.
When you sort of sign the deal of make it a movie, make it a game. But yeah, to answer your question, sure. Board games I have ideas for, and video games. So, a lot of times it's a matter of time.
Yeah. I mean, there are certain things that we would be able to execute, but then there are certain things that we just don't have the ability, like,
Sure.
Video games or movies or animation.
I brought that up as a game, but obviously I skipped over the elephant in the room, which would be the movie rights. Could there be like a tarot movie, and who could possibly play her?
Well, see, everyone comes up with that. To me, Catwoman, Tarot, Ravenhex, it comes down to the attitude and the acting.
Yeah,
So,
a talented woman.
Yeah, it's nothing that is beyond reach. I think it's wonderful. You know, some people they look at the costume and they say, how is Taro going to have her horns on her head? It's like, I've seen incredible cosplayers, you know, walking
Loki.
around. Come
Yes.
on. You know, so it's not beyond reach. I think, you know, once again, it's sort of teaming up with the right people who want to bring your vision to the big screen. Just like, you know, working with editors at DC or Marvel or even with us, if once there's that sort of connection with a creative force, a writer or an artist, then everything is possible. So yeah, the same thing with Taro as a movie. Sure, a lot of people say, well, give me a Hollywood name. You know, who would be it? You know, one time people were like, it should be Angelina Jolie. You know, it should
That
be.
was me.
Yeah, it should be it should be. Is it Hendrix, the girl from Mad Men?
Yeah, I've heard that.
Yeah, I've heard all this stuff, but to me, it's like, well, first I like, you know, unknown names.
Yeah, who knew of Arnold Schwarzenegger before Conan?
Sure, and so I just, you know, I like unknown names that's going to bring the vision to life. And what's more important is not to isolate your core readers, your fan base, where, you know, we all hate and we all have our favorite movies that you're waiting for your favorite character to come to the silver screen, and then when this character comes there, it looks totally different than any comic book you've ever seen, or the character has been totally changed just to sort of fit some sort of either PC code or to fit some editor's note. So that's important, I think, is when you get that chance to put out a movie, make sure that the people you're working with have that same vision that not only you have, but also your readership base has. Because it's ridiculous to sort of cut the core out of something that you definitely need that support from, especially when going to a big screen production.
Go ahead.
I was going to say the whole nightmare of that kind of thing is that you sell your character to the movie producers who tell you they're going to be honest to it and true to the character, and then you go to the debut and Taro is a brunette with short hair and goth makeup in high school riding a motorcycle.
That could happen, you know, and we've seen things like that happen. You know, I don't want to mention films, but I mean, a lot of people love characters because of the comic book. And then when they go see their hero on the screen, it's totally alien to them. And people wonder why the film fails. And it's because, well, you just sort of cut out your core base, your audience.
Yeah, and it's also not only the audience, but if you cut out the heart of the character or the project. And I'll bring up another book that I listened to was the Golden Compass. And they decided to sterilize it, and they took out the religious part of it. It's like, that was like pretty much like what the heart was and what made it fascinating and unique, and they sterilized it. So, you know, there's reasons why things will either do well or not do well, is if they stay true to a vision. Just like a lot of movies that no one, like Star Wars, they didn't think that was going to do well, so they didn't futz with them. You know, they let them do their vision. And we love it.
And speaking of Star Wars, you've mentioned that a couple of times now. You've got the shirt on, you had the poster. Star Wars is making new movies and getting, we're pointing at Holly here on this one. What is your opinion on the new life of Star Wars? Is it as good? Is it different in a good way? Is it different in a bad way? What are your thoughts as a fan?
Very personal for me.
Okay, I will step out on this one, all right?
Yeah, you don't have to step out. Why am I flaring?
Is she going to flail her arms around a lot here, Mr. Docs?
I'll sit on my hands. Star Wars is very personal for me. I saw it when I was, I guess, like 13 years old when it came out in 1977, right? It was amazing. It was an epiphany moment. I love it, period. When Empire Strikes Back came out, I nearly had a nervous breakdown. I couldn't believe how dark it was. This was not the movie. I mean, I had my own reactions, and every movie put out, I'll have a reaction. I'm grown up-ish now, so I can deal with Empire Strikes Back. But I love movies to begin with, and I love Star Wars. So give me the movies. I'll watch them. You know, I don't have any idea before or comment on it before. Make the movie. I will sit down. I want to be entertained. Don't want to not like it. So when I don't like it, I am disappointed. But I really am going in there a willing audience. And I'm disappointed that they're cutting back on the amount of movies that they're going to make. But if they're doing that to make better choices or better movies or invest more in it, I'm fine with that. But I do love Force Awakens as a real diehard Star Warsian, whatever you want to call it. I noticed references to Splinter of the Mind's Eye, and also to other novels that Alan Dean Foster wrote called Orphan Star. And I thought only an obsessive Star Wars lover like JJ would have done that. And it made me feel not alone. You know what I mean? I was like, oh my God, he read those books too. So I had like major internal squeeing and probably external squeeing going on. And I loved it. And it had that optimism that New Hope had. And New Hope is my movie. That's why I have the bun Leia. And I'm looking forward. What was the next one after Force Awakens? And then it was, what was the Last Jedi? I enjoyed it. I love Grumpy Luke. Again, you know, it may have not been what I expected, but I love the way they did it. Was it perfect? No, it was not perfect. It was a bit long. They could have edited it here and there, but I understood what they were going for, so I was patient. And, you know, there were pieces in the parts that I thought were too long that were worth, you know, watching. And I'm looking forward to the next one. Did I like Han Solo? No, I didn't like Han Solo. And that's okay.
The movie, the Solo movie.
Yeah, I love Han Solo.
Oh, of course. Who doesn't?
Han Solo's not dead, you know.
No.
No, he's not. I mean, you don't find the body, so no body, that doesn't mean he's dead. So,
right.
I mean, come on.
As long as there's no body, they can always have a writer find a creative way to bring him back.
All right.
Come on.
All right, so getting ready to close this out here. We get some quotes in here. Wicked Twisted says, you probably get this a lot, but thank you for continuing to create a very female empowering creation from the characters to the storyline, and honored to have been in one of them too. Hanson Smash here says, personally, I'd love to see tarot D&D style minis, the little computer figures, or tarot for Monster Hunter World. Filthy Coffin Frankenstein, I like that.
Yeah.
My life would be complete if they made a tarot of the Witch of the Black Rose movie or animation. Oh, animation's an interesting way of doing that. Something like Liquid Television did on MTV. Death, Taxes, and Comics is talking about Emily Ratajkowski. Can she act? I don't know who that is. I don't know if she could play it. And T. Wasik is saying an animated movie or TV series that is totally supervised and done directed by you guys would be Wicked, which is getting some thumbs up on that one. So yeah, an animated tarot Witch of the Black Rose would be awesome, I think. I would definitely tune in to watch that. And now there are so many options for something like that. You don't even have to network it. You could come up with your own streaming service and put it out on your own and be in total control.
Of course.
Sure.
You got time?
Harry Potter references to house elves coming.
All right. So in closing, where can people, other than your local comic shop, where can they go to get all the tarot stuff they need to fulfill their life?
This shirt right here.
JimBalent.com.
JimBalent.com. I'll add that to the description so people can go there.
We're the one, we run it. So.
And if you want to, see us daily, we're definitely on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, but definitely Facebook every day. We're always active.
All right. Well, we will be picking up Tarot Witch the Black Rose number 115 coming this March, which is the 19th anniversary. You got to say something to get the picture. Take up. Talk.
Oh, this is the image.
This is the cover. This is the back cover to 114, showing the cover to 115.
There you go, right there.
There you go.
And 19 is a big anniversary, apparently, because it's the anniversary that Harry Potter's child decides to go to Hogwarts at the end of the book. I don't know why. It could have been 20-year anniversary, because then they could... I don't know, are you a Potterhead?
Yes.
Okay. You got to talk to get the camera.
What does that have to do with, what does that have to do with Broadsword or Tarot?
I guess 19 years. That's when Albus went. Is that when you're talking about Albus goes to Hogwarts? Yeah.
Albus Severus goes to Hogwarts 19 years later. And I was like, well, that's a very specific number to pick. And I thought that, well, perhaps it's because the 20th anniversary of Voldemort's death would be coming up while he was in school. And there's that resurrection stone that's lost in the forest. And that would be a great way to kick off another series of adventures, because anniversaries mean things. 20th anniversaries mean things. He could find that stone. And but yeah, it has nothing to do with Tarot Witch of the Black Rose.
No.
In a way it does, because we just came back from Edinburgh, Scotland, where Holly actually was able to sit in the same cafe where J.K. Rowling's started writing Tarot Witch of the Black Rose. So it was really cool, not only to do a book signing at Deadhead Comics and to visit Forbidden Planet Edinburgh, but we hit all the Harry Potter sites which influenced the movie or influenced her to write the series. You know more than I, so you jump in with the graveyard and everything.
Oh yeah, we went to the graveyard. We saw serious Black references. We saw McGonagall's name there. It was awesome, you know, just the vibe there at Edinburgh. And we saw the castle. Yeah. Oh my God. I got it.
And it was really cool to sort of be in the spot where the Avengers Infinity War was, where the Vision, the Scarlet Witch was battling it out, and we were like walking down those same streets. So that was awesome.
These are spoilers.
All right.
Well, this has been fun, guys. Thank you so much for taking time out of your schedule to talk with us. I'm sure the fans appreciate it, and we will be looking forward to seeing 115 next month and getting our review out on that.
Yes.
Thank you. Bye.
Always.
Peace out.